What if the biggest mistake a historical figure ever made was actually their most important contribution? It's a wild thought, right? Well, today we're going to re-examine the Forerunner, John the Baptist, but through a pretty radical philosophical lens. We'll explore how a prophet's magnificent lie becomes the very foundation for humanity's next great leap.
So our story starts in the desert. But listen, this is not the version you probably know. I want you to just forget the idea of a gentle guide. Instead, picture this, a terrible, concentrated force of nature. We're talking about a man who wields truth not as some kind of comfort, but as a hammer.
Okay, so here's where we're headed. We'll start with the Forerunner's hammer. Then we'll get into this idea of the going under, or Untergang. After that, we'll look at the going over, the Übergang. And finally, we'll tie it all together and see how this error becomes a bridge.
All right, first up, the Forerunner's hammer, a terrible, concentrated force. So what does that even mean?
You know, this is absolutely key. His wildness. It wasn't a sickness, it wasn't madness, it was a forge. Think about that. It was this violent, deliberate act of turning his will inward, kind of like a blacksmith hammering a piece of steel, but on himself, right? Forging himself into this single, sharp point, all designed for maximum impact.
I mean, he was a total product of his environment, right? We're talking about a vision sharpened by the relentless sun, words hardened by stone. His whole purpose was to cry out against these sleeping souls, to wield that hammer of truth and wake up the world, even if it had to be done violently.
And here is the first huge twist in this whole story. That central act we all associate with him, right? The baptism, the whole washing away of sins? Well, according to this philosophy, it's reframed as a magnificent lie, a beautiful deception. It's basically an illusion, a simplification made for people who just couldn't bear the real, messy truth of it all.
So, that so-called lie leads us right into our next big idea, the going under, or in German, Untergang. This is all about creating the herd, and it's where we really see the consequences of that beautiful deception play out. Okay, so what exactly is Untergang? Well, let's be super clear. This is not about humility. It's about the necessary fall of a herald. The idea is that he's a precursor who has to collapse, to go under, in order to prepare the path for whatever's coming next, even if that next thing is actually built on a greater error.
So how did he go under? It was actually by creating this massive simplification. See, by calling everyone equal before his cleansing water, he effectively erased what made each person unique. He took this vibrant, many-colored man and essentially washed him out into a single, pale shade. And just like that, you have the creation of the herd.
Wow, the metaphors here are just so powerful. He was the thunder before the lightning, the heavy drop of rain right before the storm breaks. He's a herald who must perish. His role is to announce what's coming, but he's not the main event. He's this powerful but ultimately temporary force that has to disappear.
Which really makes you wonder, right? He leaves behind this grand scaffolding for a new herd. So, was his work just a failure? If all he did was create this simplified, homogenized group, what was the point?
Okay, that brings us to our third part, the going over, or Übergang. And this is where the perspective completely flips. Here, man is seen as a rope, as a bridge.
So, back to that question, was his work a failure? The answer here is a resounding no. In fact, it's the opposite. It was the perfect ground from which to leap. That whole scaffolding he built for the herd, it wasn't a cage, it was a launch pad.
And that leap is what Übergang is all about. It's the act of transition, of self-overcoming. And this is crucial. It's not about fulfilling some old prophecy. It's about shattering it. It's about seeing the whole setup and making a conscious leap to go beyond it.
And this is where you see the two paths diverge. On one side, you have the herd's truth. They take his lie, his shadow, and they make it into a sun that keeps them warm and comfortable. They cling to the promise. But on the other side, you have the true going over. This is the person who realizes the baptism was just a game. They don't want the easy comfort. They seek purification through fire, through the real challenge of self-overcoming. They're the ones who leap across the chasm of that very error.
Okay, and that brings us to our final piece of the puzzle, from error to bridge. This is where we're going to see the Forerunner's true redemption, his real purpose in this whole philosophical drama.
So, let's just lay it all out side by side. The Forerunner represents the Untergang, the going under. It's for the herd.
It's a necessary error. It's the foundation. The Overman, on the other hand, is the Übergang, the going over. That's for the self. It's the overcoming of that error. It's the leap. See how they're connected? You just can't have one without the other.
So the path of overcoming is actually pretty clear when you break it down. Step 1, the foundation. That's the Forerunner's going under, his honest but flawed idea. Step 2 is the realization. That moment you see as untruth not as a dead end, but as the perfect ground to leap from. And finally, step 3, the leap. That's the Overman's going over, literally using that fallen body as the bridge to cross.
And this leads to the central, kind of mind-bending paradox of the whole thing. The Forerunner's honesty? That was his weakness. His absolute belief in his simple solution was the flaw. And yet, his true value, his real contribution, is found precisely in that magnificent untruth.
So, what's his true redemption in all of this? It's not to be remembered as a saint by the herd. No, it's to be the bridge. The bridge that a stronger soul, a soul that is laughing, totally getting the cosmic joke of it all, crosses on its way to a new day. What a completely radical idea to leave you with.